And I am Director of Regional Planning at Regional One Planning Council, and will be serving as today's moderator, as well as presenting a little bit about Region 1 and what we're doing related to electric vehicles. So we're pleased to be able to welcome us to our first EV expert panel discussion. And this is just one of the many events that we have been hosting throughout this week as a part of the second annual Drive Electric Week. Drive Electric Week aims to educate the public on electric vehicles, engage the private sector to form lasting partnerships, and promote the use of clean and renewable energy. The shift towards hybrid electric and plug-in electric vehicles can be seen throughout the nation, including here in the Rockford region. However, despite the growth in the number of electric and hybrid electric vehicles, there's a significant amount of work related to infrastructure, investment, and policies needed to support electric vehicles. This is why Regional Planning Council produced an EV readiness plan for Northern Illinois in 2020, and is focused on preparing the Rockford region for this increase in vehicles. As I mentioned, this is just one of our many events being held, and we've been doing both in-person and virtual events. If you are unable to attend one of our virtual events, I encourage you to visit our website or our YouTube channel to watch those recordings. I also want to give a special thanks to our sponsors of Drive Electric Week. First, our presenting sponsor, ComEd. This is the second year that they have assisted in sponsoring our week-long event. I also want to give a special thanks to Thayer Energy Solutions, Rebate, and Blink Charging for also being sponsors. And then I do know that there are a number of elected officials in the audience today, so I just wanted to thank you for showing up, and if you don't mind standing, and we really appreciate you being here. So as I mentioned, our lineup today includes a brief presentation on the EV readiness panel for Northern Illinois, developed by Regional One Planning Council, and after that we will be following up with a panel discussion and a Q&A session. If you have any questions you'd like to ask either R1 or any of the panelists, there are comment or question cards on the tables, and staff members will be going around and collecting those throughout the event. So I first wanted to start off today talking a little bit about Region 1 and what we're doing related to electric vehicles. So Region 1 Planning Council, or R1 as we currently refer to it, is a special purpose government agency providing government-to-government collaboration planning for Northern Illinois. We serve a 5-county study area that encompasses Stevenson, Winnebago, Boone, McHenry, and Ogle counties. We provide a number of services to our partner agencies, including community health, economic development, mapping, grant writing, transportation planning, and research and analytics. Additionally, R1 holds 2 federal designations. We are the Metropolitan Planning Organization focused on transportation planning, as well as the Economic Development District. So as I mentioned, we are the federally designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, and this is a consortium of state, regional, and local agencies that work collaboratively to address the multi-jurisdictional issues related to transportation. So the policy board of the Metropolitan Planning Organization is comprised of elected officials of Boone and Winnebago County, the cities of Belvedere, Rockford, and Lumps Park, the village of Metuxley Park, and the board chair of the Rock Mass Transit District, as well as the district engineer for IDOT District 2. Much of the day-to-day operations and technical work of the MPO is accomplished by a professional staff under the management of Regional One Planning Council. And as the MPO, we cover a range of topics from roads to rail to alternative fuel and bicycle and pedestrian. So in 2018, well before we knew what the bipartisan infrastructure bill was going to pass, the MPO began looking into electric vehicles and how the region should address the increase of these types of vehicles. And this really came out of looking at registration on the number of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles that were being registered month over month. Between 2018 and 2020 alone, it was over a 3,000% increase in the number of electric vehicles registered to our area. So, as a part of this, we decided to develop a framework for the region that is consistent and accessible charging networks that allows the future growth in the nation. So part of this plan was to develop a baseline framework of where are we at as a region related to EV infrastructure, number of vehicles, and then also provide a toolbox for partner agencies to be able to use. So the first phase of the planning process was dedicated to researching best practices and national trends. Research conducted including identifying the different types of vehicles available on the market and the associated supply equipment needed to charge them, as well as the existing national, state, and local programs supporting electric vehicles. In this research, there was several states that came up as being well in advance of us, one of those being California, as well as Colorado. So looking at what the best practices are for some of those states that have been doing this a little bit longer than us. So the second phase of the project took into consideration the local perspective of electric vehicles and how ready local governments were to address EV trends. So we took a two-pronged approach. So the first one is we gauged public opinion on electric vehicles. What is the likelihood of individuals owning electric vehicles, and what are some of the reasons behind their apprehensions in purchasing them, as well as looking at the challenges current EV owners face in the region. Second, our PC staff met with various county and municipal staff to discuss their jurisdictional approach to planning for electric vehicles, both within their codes and ordinances. And then the third and final phase was to set regional goals and to targets aimed at becoming a more EV-ready region and drafting the final plan. So through this process, we found that there were two primary benefits to electric vehicles. So the first, environmental, and this is the one that most people say why they purchased a vehicle. And so EVs have a reduced direct and life cycle emissions of cost. And then second is the economic one that a lot of people don't realize. So economic is twofold. There's benefits to businesses who put electric vehicles within their buildings, either to support their own fleets, their employees, or even the public. This is a great way for businesses, especially right off the highway, to maybe draw in more customers. EV charging takes a few minutes or sometimes hours depending on the charging infrastructure, and so that's a lot of customers that you can get into local businesses and supporting them. The second is to owners. So while there's a higher upfront vehicle cost, there's a lower long-term cost. This is reduced gas, especially with the increases lately that we've been experiencing, as well as lower just general maintenance. So no more oil changes, for instance. But there's also a number of barriers to EV. So first, as I mentioned, was the higher initial purchase cost. So between $30,000 to $90,000 plus is how much a typical electric vehicle will cost you. While we're seeing these prices decrease, what we're now facing is that there's a shortage. So earlier this week we hosted a cruise in night, and there is a delay. So you will order an electric vehicle, and it may be 12 to 24 months before you're able to get that, and that's just because of the high demand that they're in right now. So consumers also are misinformed on electric vehicles. So not aware that there's over 140 different available models and attributes for electric vehicles. They're worried about performance and safety, as well as the available incentives. A lot of people just don't know what's out there. And then finally, the lack of available charging stations, or what you'll hear as range anxiety, is a major barrier for people to purchase them. So looking at the statistics, as I mentioned, there has been a significant increase. While I don't have a trend line here, we are keeping track every few months on how many vehicles are being registered and what that trend line is. This is one of those trend lines that you like to see because it's basically a straight up shot in trend. We're also seeing a number of station imports increasing since 2018 when we first started doing this. And the number of incentives available are increasing every day, both with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act through the federal government, as well as a lot of state initiatives. So, how do we become an EV ready? Is what we started asking ourselves. We can't address all of the barriers for EV adoption as a government or as the public sector, but we can make ownership and charging more accessible for people. So we developed 3 goals. The first goal was to establish a robust network of public charging station infrastructure. And part of this was to identify and prioritize key locations of electric vehicle supply equipment on charging stations, promote and establish incentives for the installation of EVSE by businesses in commercial developments, and provide wayfinding signage to help electric vehicle drivers navigate public charging stations. Our second goal was to integrate electric vehicle supply equipment into public policies and planning efforts. So updating zoning ordinances to identify what types of charging stations are available by land use type, streamlining the permit process for the installation of charging stations in both residential and commercial properties, incorporating EV readiness into local and regional planning documents, including but not limited to comprehensive plans and corridor studies. And finally, connecting interested property owners and managers, homeowner associations and businesses to educational resources and contacts related to electric vehicle charging stations. And finally, our goal is to act as a leader in coordinating efforts to make Northern Illinois ready. So this included coordinating with regional partners to leverage procurement and funding opportunities, partner with local utility providers and companies to leverage public-private partnerships for the installation, encourage the use of battery electric vehicles or hybrid electric vehicles in fleets, and advocate for state policies and funding programs to support installation of public vehicle charging infrastructure. And so that is where I'm going to wrap up mine, because a lot of our panelists today will talk about how, as a region, we are addressing it, and also from a public and private utility standpoint. So the first panelist I would like to welcome is Philip Roy. Philip is the Director of External Affairs with ComEd, which delivers electricity to more than 4 million residential and business customers across Northern Illinois. In his current role, Philip leads a team that manages ComEd's relationship with around 200 communities in their service territory. In prior roles at ComEd, Philip developed and executed strategies related to renewable energies, distribution, generation, beneficial electrician, and utility business model. Before joining ComEd, Philip served as a local government as a public policy professional. He graduated from Lawrence University and Northeastern Illinois University with an MA in political science.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Marlon, for this great event, this great series of events. Rockford has been a real leader in a lot of areas, and it's been great to see in recent years the leadership that this region, the R1 Planning Council, has brought to bear related to this very important issue that we're here to talk about, which is the electrification of transportation. I'm going to walk you through today the components of the new plan that we filed with the Illinois Commerce Commission earlier this month, July 1st. And this was our first beneficial electrification plan final. This was something that was required by CEJA, the Clean Energy Law that passed in Illinois last fall. And we're really excited to tell you about what we're proposing to do here in Northern Illinois. Cindy did a great job in her presentation of starting to outline the key benefits of electric vehicles, but she also identified some of the key barriers to adoption of EVs. And that's really what we're trying to do with our first beneficial electrification plan, is to meaningfully reduce barriers to adoption for beneficial electrification technologies that includes EVs, but also other electric end uses that replace fossil fuel end uses. Right? So we want to see broad decarbonization and improve air quality in our communities. Something that's also really important for us is that we want to make sure that we're accelerating and prioritizing benefits for low-income communities and environmental justice communities. And CEJA had a clear focus on equity. That focus resonates with us at ComEd, and that should be reflected in what I'm going to present to you today. We went through a process prior to filing this plan, where the Illinois Commerce Commission hosted a series of 10 workshops, where we had over 100 stakeholders within each of those workshops providing input for the two major utilities in the state to consider in their beneficial electrification plans. We heard about the barriers that communities face, heard about the barriers that customers face, heard about also a whole lot of energy in this space, right? People are very interested in making this transition, and we clearly want to help them do just that. So with this first plan, what we're trying to do, again, is meaningfully reduce those barriers, help our customers and our communities to to unleash the benefits of electrification. In the interest of time, what I'm going to do is provide a quick overview of the plan and then walk through some of the key components, just so you can kind of sit with those program ideas, think about how they might help this community and this region achieve their goals. I will quickly say that we did file this plan with the Commerce Commission, so we are currently in a litigated docketed proceeding about this plan. So there might be certain questions that I can't fully answer because it's a litigated issue, but I want to be as forthcoming as I can to make sure you have good line of sight into what we're planning to do. So our proposal at ComEd includes a spend of $100 million per year over 3 years, separated into 4 key programs. There's a residential program, a commercial and industrial and public sector program, an education program, and a fund for pilots and technical demonstrations. And also, as part of our filing package, and I think this will be interesting to a lot of communities and planning organizations, we also included a proposal to create 2 new customer classes for commercial and industrial and public sector customers who are interested in installing EV infrastructure. And I'll give you some of the details of that proposal as well. All right, so starting with our residential program, we are proposing rebates for passenger vehicles with larger rebates for low-income customers and those within environmental justice or R3 communities as designated by the cannabis law the past few years ago. We see this program as working together with the state's program. You might have heard about how Cedar also included the creation of an EV rebate program that the state of Illinois is administering. We want to use that program plus the funds that we're dedicated to make EVs more accessible to low-income customers. So to that end, our proposal is that low-income customers will be able to take advantage of both the state rebate and the common rebate, essentially stacking those 2 rebates to substantially reduce that upfront cost and make it more likely that a low-income customer can make that transition to an electric vehicle. We are also going to have rebates that are available for non-low-income customers. We're just not going to allow folks to stack those 2 rebates because we want to stretch those dollars across multiple vehicles, really see broad adoption here in our service territory. We're also including rebates for residential charging infrastructure. Those rebates will cover the customer side, what are called make-ready costs, to address the infrastructure needs in the house or the garage to install charging infrastructure. With that program, we're going to require that folks enroll in our hourly pricing rate, which you might know about and might not know about. Our hourly pricing rate is a rate that differs by the hour based on real-time energy prices. And so when people enroll in that rate, if they have an electric vehicle, what they're incentivized to do is to push their usage, their charging off-peak, which also happens to be for periods of low energy costs. So it's beneficial for the grid because we're moving some of that load off-peak. It's also beneficial for customers because you're going to optimize your fuel savings by going from spending on gas to spending on electricity, trying the lowest cost areas. Transportation is clearly the near-term focus for us. Right? It's the low-hanging fruit in the electrification space. We want to enable this transition. But we do see beneficial electrification as a broad opportunity to enable decarbonization and lower emissions. So we do have a few small non-transportation programs within our plan that are aimed to work in tandem with our energy efficiency options to enable adoption of those technologies. So on the residential side, this includes rebates for various home appliances, as well as a rebate program to address the electric infrastructure upgrades necessary to support primarily building electrification. Moving on to public sector, C&I and public sector program, and I think this will be interesting to a lot of the folks in the room today. We have similar programs or sub-programs within this program, but significantly more funded. And this is for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that we really want to effectuate the electrification of fleets across our service territory low-income and environmental justice communities to really create those air quality benefits for the customers and communities that need them most. Here, in this program, we have an EV rebate program that includes fleet vehicles of various sizes, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty, also includes rebates for school buses and transit buses. The rebates are sized to account for the environmental and the health benefits enabled by that vehicle. But they also take into account what Sydney mentioned, which is the purchase price differential, right, between a diesel fleet vehicle, for example, and an electric. Because we wanted to make sure that the rebate is meaningful. It's sized in a way that people will likely take the rebate, adopt this technology. Similar to the residential program, for each vehicle rebate here, we have a base rebate as well as a larger rebate that will be available to low-income, to customers that are in or primarily serve environmental justice communities or our communities. Again, to try and push adoption and benefits to those communities that need them most. On the charging infrastructure side, we're proposing rebates to address customer side make-ready costs specifically for public sector and public charging providers within EJC and our communities. This rebate program, however, is intended to complement a broader charging infrastructure strategy, which is on the next slide, to provide additional support to accelerate those benefits again to those communities, make sure that we don't end up in a situation where you have charging deserts in the same way that we unfortunately have ended up in a situation where we have food deserts in certain parts of our state and our country. We want to make sure that folks can be confident when they adopt these vehicles, that fleets can be confident that they're going to be able to fill up as necessary to make sure that they can meet the needs of their business. And then again, we've got a couple of non-transportation components in here as well, specifically to support adoption of various industrial measures and technologies that replace fossil fuel technologies and also to address infrastructure upgrades. So that broader EV charging infrastructure strategy that I mentioned, that is that we included in our filing a proposal to create 2 new customer classes within our C&I customer, broader C&I customer class. This would be for commercial and industrial or public sector customers who are installing EV charging stations and want to put that load behind a separate meter. This would be an optional class, so customers can choose to install EV charging infrastructure, stay in their existing customer class, and go about their business. Or they might recognize the benefits of these new customer classes that we're offering and choose to put that charging load behind a separate meter and put it in one of these new classes. So there's going to be a new class for level 2 chargers and a new class for level 3 DC fast chargers. Joining this class would include 2 key benefits. These benefits are directly responsive to feedback that we've heard from communities, from planning organizations, from customers about some of the barriers that they face. And those 2 key benefits are, 1, that ComEd, the utility, would provide make-ready infrastructure on both sides of the meter for members of the class. This would, in most cases, remove the upfront cost barrier involved with installing charging infrastructure and allow customers to essentially pay for those facilities through their rates over a very long period of time, in the same way that customers pay for other ComEd infrastructure that they use. Most of our infrastructure depreciates on a 40-year schedule. We anticipate that this infrastructure will be treated similarly. So for a customer, a public sector customer installing charging infrastructure, they probably wouldn't have any upfront costs to install those chargers, because all of that infrastructure would be installed, owned, operated, maintained by ComEd all the way up to the stub of the charging station. So they wouldn't have that upfront cost, and then over a period of time, they would pay their monthly bill for the facilities that are on their customer side. We think that this could have significant benefits to help enable and spur the adoption and deployment of charging infrastructure. This includes for customers, those charging providers who want to take part in that program. We'll allow that funding to go further. Will allow us to make sure that we have that deployment and we can feel confident driving across our state that we've got charging. The other key benefit is that members of this class can choose to stick with this. It's going to get a little rate design, but their existing default demand-based rate, which is the way most commercial and industrial customers pay for their delivery service charges. So they can either stick with that, or they can opt into a new alternative that we're providing, which is a volumetric or kWh-based rate. What we found from talking to customers and doing our own research is that demand-based rates, which essentially triggers a demand charge if you're using a lot of electricity between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. So if you've got a bunch of cars that have to charge during the day because of your operational needs, or you're a public charging provider and your chargers are open and people are charging, you might trigger that demand charge. But if your utilization is low, right, you don't have a lot of cars charging across the 24 hours of the day, you don't have a lot of usage to spread those charging, those costs on us. And what we found is that there's actually a threshold. It's about 20 to 25% of utilization. If you're below that threshold, the demand-based rate can be a bit challenging for your use case. If you're above that threshold, the demand-based rate is actually better for you. So what we've done through this proposal is giving customers the flexibility to adapt based on their own unique situation, pick a rate that helps them optimize their costs as they deploy and use charging infrastructure. Real quickly, on the customer education side, a clear barrier. We know that folks need awareness, they need tools, they need resources to make this transition. And those needs differ across residential customers, commercial and industrial customers, municipalities. And so what we are proposing to do is expand on what we already offer to make sure that all of our customers have the tools they need, have the information they need to make that transition. That includes intensive fleet electrification assessments, where a fleet manager, whether it's a municipal fleet manager or a commercial fleet manager, would be able to work with a third-party vendor that would provide to them to work through the details of their fleets, the kinds of vehicles they have, their operational needs, do some analysis and determine the economic and operational feasibility of making that transition. So really helping folks develop a roadmap to electrify their vehicles. And then finally, we intend to propose one that can be used for pilots and technical demonstrations. Electrification, vehicles, other end uses, still a relatively nascent area. And we want to make sure that we continue to push the envelope here in Northern Illinois, that we're testing technologies, we're testing revenue streams for customers, and continue to make improvements and move our region. So finally, I just want to highlight that this is the plan that we filed July 1st. We're going to get a final order sometime early next year. Hopefully that final order looks something like the plan that we just filed. But we do strongly believe that this is a good plan that is responsive to the governor and the state's goals, that is consistent with CJO's priorities, and importantly, is informed by valuable feedback from our communities and our customers. It should reduce barriers to the deployment of charging infrastructure by private and public entities, and support the adoption of EVs across our customer sites. Thank you so much for having us here today. I hope this was useful, so you have some information about what we're hoping to do here in Northern Illinois to help the region move forward in this space. Really looking forward to hearing from the other panelists and looking forward to our discussion. Thanks, Steve.
So next up, we have Chuck Meyers. Chuck Meyers is the electric vehicle charging specialist and energy advisor at Thayer Energy Solutions. Chuck has proudly served as a local fire service for 18 years, as an Illinois Office of State Fire Marshal Service investigator and fire inspector. With a passion for emergency preparedness and business continuity planning, Chuck has various certifications from IEMA, FEMA, and Homeland Security, and enjoys planning with a mindset of what could go wrong and make decisions to never have to be in a bad situation. Mitigating issues of cybersecurity and electrical safety allows Chuck to sleep easy at night. As being a Rockford Chamber 2015 Leadership As the newest member of the Thayer team, selling and installing charging stations across the United States, he is currently waxing his surfboard to ride waves and the revolution of electric vehicles and charging networks behind them.
I'm a huge nerd, so get ready. This is good. My name is Chuck Meyers. I'm with Thayer Energy Solutions. We've been in Rockford area for 35 years. I've done over 90 million square feet of lighting conversions using Comets energy rebate programs. We help the customers lower their base load on energy, get the incentives. Meyer is the electric vehicle charger, so we're going to go through what's happening at the national and local levels with the cars, the EVs, and the chargers. So something real quick. My favorite thing that everybody always says to me at an event, yeah, that's great, Chuck, but not in my lifetime. That's the biggest thing. So who here has purchased bottled water? Who buys bottled water? Please raise your hand. Everybody. My dad's 73, and he's like, this bottled water's coming out. I don't know who's going to buy that when you can get it from the tap. And this guy buys cases of it. So we adapted technology. It gets better. It's fun for us. Who else here has a smartphone? Here's got a bag phone. Anybody got a bag phone? All right, we've adapted. We're moving along. So, who here has interest in buying an electric vehicle? Who here owns an electric vehicle? What's your name again? Say it again. All right, it's going to be up. So, all right, so we're interested. So. It is a wild west out there of technology, and Uncle Elon is riding his horse, leading the way on different technologies, but everybody else is not too far behind. Ford especially is a program that's been keeping their eye on Tesla. You're going to see manufacturers come out with woodwork that you've never heard before. So when we're waiting for these cars, there is a big race that is getting ready to happen. It's the electrification of vehicles that are happening. It's not just me and Izzy. We're going to be having a race up front after the event. We're going to line up the Tesla and the Mach-E. We're going to go to town. So all off the tops will be fine. So we're going to cover a few quick things. I'm going to make this quick. I am going to move through this, but if you guys want me to come out to your location and do a 45-minute version of this, we dance, we throw things out, we bring chargers. We're going to talk about what's going on with electric vehicle chargers and vehicles. What does the driver experience look like when I get that vehicle, when I go home? What am I dealing with? What is the business or the municipality dealing with when they're putting this in, installing this, what are the benefits? And then how can we help you? Thayer, we're local, we install, we sell the product, we install the product. If you have something else you like, we'll install it, we sell it, install it across the United States. So here, local. My grandma made a comment before she passed away, and she said, Chucky, that's what I get when I get little. I'm Chucky, and now I'm Chuck. She goes, Chucky, before your life's over, I think you're going to be flying to work in your car. Not in my lifetime, Grandma. But we're going to talk about what's coming right around the corner. So, big thing that we go through is those that are adopting. Everybody's always adopting and changing the ways. COVID has done a lot with how we do business in different ways, but adaptation is happening at the vehicle level. So all of our OEM manufacturers have pledged a timeline of what's going to be coming. But Sony, we're going to talk about Sony here in a second. Sony's done video cameras, they have done your Walkmans, your Discmans, your PlayStations. Sony and Honda are teamed up together to make an electric vehicle. It's going to be pretty wild. I think you're going to have about 15 screens in there doing whatever. It's going to be driving you wherever. This is coming. Quick game show, real fast here. The Not in My Lifetime game show. And okay. Anybody know what this is? Flicker. And that's why they call it flicker. So who's converting? The auto industry is converting. The second question, who here works for a business, an organization, a municipality that plans on, or even yourself, do you plan on buying a new vehicle in the next 3 to 5 years? Please raise your hand if that's part of your organization, fleets, personal. Based on what the OEMs, all the auto manufacturers are planning on doing, it's 50% reduction of electric vehicle by 2025. That's what they're pledging. Still got some supply chain issues, but they like making these cars. They're usually, we went from 2,000 moving parts down to 200. Tesla says they have 12 moving parts. We move fast, maybe. So Tesla, Mercedes teamed up. Everybody's teaming up to go together to make these fast. Apple comes out later this year. I love their autonomous iCar is coming out. Toyota and BYD, we talk about $30,000 vehicles. They're working on the most efficient options. And as these cars come out, just like technology does, the price will keep lowering down to affordable prices. Ford and Volkswagen. I mean, these are interesting groups, but this is what's happening. Google this later. Everybody is getting on the grids. It is you later. Honda and Sony. We've got BMW, the Cadillac Lyric. They were all of their cars were called reserved in the first 10 minutes. So when that was released, they were pledged for 10 minutes. So then it doesn't just stop there. We have electric vertical takeoff and landing. They're lining up rooftops. We're putting our chargers onto rooftops for these 2, 4, 6-person drones. It's going to move product around, move people around. Grandma was right. It's coming. So Archer is making them because these battery technologies have gotten better, cheaper, and they're changing. We'll talk about the batteries real quick. Lilium and Honeywell, Airbus, who makes our helicopters, Bell, Bobcat, electric Bobcats. We'll run through these. We've got electric boats, electric planes. Boeing has a pledge for 10 years out. Straight trucks, Freightliners. Here in Rockford, CIT Trucking, he works on our fire trucks at the fire station. I said, Jim, what do you think? He goes, nah, not in my lifetime. That was a year ago. Messaged him the other day. I said, Jim, what do you think? He goes, I'm down in Dallas. We're at the National Convention for Mac. It's all electric. It's happening. That's all everybody's talking about. It's coming. Pierce in Madison, Oshkosh, Pierce up in the Oshkosh area. They make the electric fire truck. Madison just took theirs on last year. Sorry if I'm spazzing running through this. I'm charged up, so. Then we've got John Deere working on equipment. The Harley Davidson live wire is back. That's all electric. We've got pledges from the United States Parcel Service. Purchased 50,000 of these next-gen delivery vehicles. 10,000 of them will be electric. FedEx by 2025, 50% of its fleet will be electric. By 2040, the entire fleet. UPS, they placed their first order for 10,000 vehicles. And Amazon pledges to be carbon neutral by 2040. And they ordered the first 100,000 electric vehicles. So batteries, again, have me come out, or we'll talk to you guys even about the batteries in the whole module, but what you guys need to know is it's not just lithium. It's graphene, it's fluorine, it's solid state, it's changing very fast. And 400-volt batteries last year, 800-volt batteries this year. What does that mean? The Kia EV6, we can charge it on one of our fast chargers, 350 kW, up to 80% in 18 minutes. That's not hours. So he was right. You can do it in minutes. Ford's working on the 5-minute fill-up cable. So you're going to be going to these gas stations, and it's not like, well, I can't just get 200, 300 miles. We've got batteries that are going to come out that are current. They're not on production, 700 miles of range. So we went from 200 to 700 miles in 1 year. What does next year look like, and so on? You can go 1,500 miles on a quick fill-up. Gas stations are converting over. Friends up there at Haggerty and Traverse City, I said, hey, keep me in the loop on what's going on with the old cars. He said, everybody's loving it. You can unbolt an engine, you can put in the E-crate motors, and electrify your old equipment too. So that was always the thing. We rebuild and collect old classic cars, and it's nice to not have to clean out the tank and the carburetor and throw something like this in. So what's coming? was talking about the VG technologies, that's vehicle to grid. That's like the Ford Lightning back into your house. It's bi-directional charging. Do not go out and buy your generator. Maybe don't even get the battery. I mean, the batteries are good, but it's going to be in the car on wheels. You go home, power goes out, backfeed the house. Conrad's working on different programs to be able to support that. VPP, virtual power plants. Take you back to 1940. Hey, we got this thing called the internet. It's coming out. It's going to be worldwide. It's going to be shared information across the World Wide Web. And somebody goes, not my lifetime. Yeah, right. VPP, virtual power plants, is the ability to take power from your batteries, from homes, from cars, and you integrate it electronically to be able to say, I can load share. If my house has the battery filled up and you need some, I'll give you some. There's a little price exchange to it, but I can share it to you. If my house can do it to your house, my state can do it to your state, my state can do it to your state, then our nation is able to use a virtual World Wide Web for electricity with VPP. It is coming. Conrad's working on it. They're making extreme upgrades to the utility lines. Again, we don't use 56K dial-up on our copper phones anywhere. We got all of our local teams boring and getting fiber put in everywhere. We're doing power, we're doing water, we're doing roads. Everything is getting upgraded. We've got R1 doing a heck of a job educating our counties around us on what is going on with the technologies coming, bringing the resources together, and bringing good resources in. We've got Blink. Blink is a network of chargers. People are always hear that term network. Network is like, hey, what kind of phone do you got? You say, I got an iPhone. What network are you on? I'm on Verizon. Hardware on a network. Those are networks for charging together. It's a hardware distributing power on the network. So Blink is a network. There's other networks that we have. Like I said, it's a good product coming into our area. So we've had 30 different manufacturers, and we landed down to 5 that we really like, that are really good networks. Here's one of them. Blue Oval City. Ford is working on Blue Oval City. So when you're thinking again, well, not in my lifetime. Blue Oval City is like a Silicon Valley for electric vehicles. So they're in Kentucky and Tennessee, investing $7 billion in the investment for that. That's to build the electric vehicles, and then they have a battery plant to take the batteries apart and recycle them. Some of these batteries are made with 50% plastic. We can take the plastic, put it into a battery, use it, reuse it. It's awesome. Tesla's got 14 gigafactories. There's going to be companies that you haven't seen come out in the auto manufacturing. We've heard of Lucid. Lion is here in Illinois. They're making refuse trucks. They're making school buses. We've got Rivian. Canoe, right down Canoe. That's a really fun one. That's a platform where you can change it from a truck to a van to a car. It's pretty awesome. So what is Thayer doing? Again, we're here local. We're Thayer Lighting. We're now Thayer Energy Solutions. We have a growing sales team. We sell and install nationwide with our 11 different manufacturers. If you need something, we'll put it in. And more importantly, I'm not so much worried about selling. I come to educate you so that we can talk to your employees, talk to your organizations, and say, it is coming, it's a little scary, but it's nice to drink this bottled water, have my smartphone, different technologies that are advanced. So, customer service, talk about manufacturers. We've got a 20 contractor team local here, some of the largest civil, electrical installers in the area install for us. We work together on different projects. One of the biggest things we're working through is HR maintenance. Different products. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. People will need to charge in the workplace because by 2025, they had to buy the electric vehicle, and then they learn they like it. They kind of ruin you. They're really nice, they're quiet, they're fast. I'm surprised I haven't gotten sent speeding tickets already, but you just don't realize it's off. And people might go, well, I don't have the power maybe at home, so I rely on my work. So in order to get to work, put in the charge here. Provide that to your employees, to your customers, but we make sure that they have different pieces of software on it to allow for balanced shared use during the day. So one person doesn't just sit on it all day long. Charging at home. schools are they're awesome. They are doing programs with the youth over at Roosevelt. They've got an electric vehicle that they're working on, where the kids are learning how to tear it down, build it back up. It uses the same chargers we have. So those kids will be able to learn that product. They'll go to our neighboring dealerships. Yep, thank you. The neighboring dealerships become EV technicians because they got that here locally in the school. So the driver experience, basically you can get the car, you buy it from the dealership, you go home, and you plug in on what's called level 1. It's about 3 to 5 miles of range per hour charge. It's not much, but it's an easy install. You can trickle charge your car basically. Throughout Rockford, there are different locations. Get yourself a plug share app. Write that down, download it, and you will find where all the charges are. It tells you what's free, what the costs are. Local here in Rockford. Shows you where all the chargers are in the area. Then, so for the commercial experience, the municipality school, we're providing these again for people that can't charge at home, or we're using telematics. We can literally take a mom and pop pizza shop, put the charger in, use telematics to draw the car into that location. Never had a chance before to get that much traffic, and now the car is literally driving itself to that location using telematics. Telematics is the same as OnStar, for example. There's a library in Rockford that has a fuel pump on the side of the building, and it is pumping out premium. You guys are going to catch me after this and say, where is that fuel pump at? That's what our chargers are doing. We put it on the side of the library, put it on the side of the building, and people are like, there's a charger there, and I go get free fuel. Or your favorite bar. Izzy, what's your favorite bar? District, across the street. They've got a fuel pump out front pumping out 30-cent premium. They're making some money out of it. How many cars are going to be lined up in front of the district? Because that fuel pump set. That's what the chargers are doing. Well, that's just for the Tesla owners. Well, no. By 2025, by 2030, that's all of us driving vehicles. Where are these chargers at? We're going to go to it. We're going to get free fuel. Get really cost-effective fuel. $9 versus $70. See what's in your municipality, what's in your business, how many chargers doing. You put in a vending machine somewhere, piece of hardware, set up, uses a credit card, you put M&Ms in it, you make some money out of it. It's good business. No. So you go somewhere, they got an ATM machine, put some money into it, transact money, get some money back. The business piece, gambling machines, but they still make money. Chargers. Set up a piece of hardware on a network, we set you up with the price that you want to charge, you make money out of it. People enjoy a place to charge. You got the Sam's Club there in Rockford. You know, again, the ROI, it's not just how much is that charger making me. Maybe I like to have employees in my workplace. My employees love that they can get free charging at work. That's perfect. I got more employees back to work this year, more volunteers in the church, more volunteers at the fire station, wherever. You've got to add traffic with the telematics going to your location. You're literally getting put on the map. You saw the maps before, they're going to grow. You're going to be the leader in the area of sustainability. You're just going to start picking up. People use plug share, they know where it's at. The DC fast chargers, again, works the same as the level 2s, but we're fast filling cars very fast. 250 miles range per hour charge, or the key 86 in 18 minutes. So how can we help you guys? We help educate our customers, organizations on how to get these put in. Vetted the manufacturer, we did fine print, we do an assessment, we come out and give you a free price. And then what Philip was talking about, incentives are coming. The Illinois incentives are coming for our 80% funding. We've got combat incentives, we've got rebates, we've got everything. That's what we help you do, is say, here's the cost of the charger, here's the cost of the install, here's a whole bunch of incentives. You might have almost paid itself off. Here you go, let's get it installed. Get your quotes before that money comes out of Illinois. We help people avoid problematic charging stations. Businesses can get bad reviews because you misinstall a charger, you go to the wrong spot, you have a quarter panel over it, you go to a gas station, and the cords are laying out and broken on it. Fuel pump, you'd say this is probably not right. We help you work through that process. We take care of the installation. Here for the long haul, been here for 35 years. Oh, here's a good one. Bitcoin. Somebody probably wishes they would have got in on Bitcoin. Somebody knew about Bitcoin before it went big. Somebody knew about GameStop before that happened. We knew about chargers before it's happened. It's going to be big. Politically, sometimes it's both different sides, but then there's the auto manufacturers that go, I like this. This is cost effective for us to make cars fast. It's going to be hard to stop the auto manufacturers from putting into place the $7 billion facilities and moving out these new vehicles. So if it's awkward now, it was awkward putting in a self-storage place. Now, all of a sudden, years later, it's a no-brainer. If it's awkward now, it's probably the right time to do it. So get ready to get your quotes. Curious, on-site guy at the end of something. Thank you guys very much.
He is with Blink Charging. He's their executive account manager for the U.S. Central region with over 16 years leading regional mobility options in several states, including Illinois, Indiana, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Paul has served on multiple planning committees and has led the implementation of technologies, including EV charging stations, PV array installations, advanced parking guidance and wayfinding systems, license plate recognition, transportation fleet driver and vehicle analytics, and data analytic platforms. Paul currently serves on the IPMI Planning, Design, and Construction Committee meeting, previously served on the Technology Committee and as the board member and treasurer of the New England Parking Council. He has earned a designation as a certified administrator of public parking and is a Park Smart advisor.
Hi, thanks for coming out. It's great to see such a great turnout here. Let me ask, does anybody here drive an EV currently? Any EV owners? Great. Is there anybody here that, let me ask this, is there anybody here that's not familiar with how electric vehicles charge? Okay, well, I think Chuck did a great job. Basically, what you want to know, on level 2 charging, you're plugging into an onboard converter. It converts AC power to DC and then feeds the battery. So you're capped off based on the capacity of the vehicle. On DC fast charge, you're plugging directly to the battery. So you charge at a much faster rate, which is good and not good in some ways because it will wear down the battery. But we'll talk a little bit about both these models. By the way, has anybody looked at buying a Tesla or any other EV vehicle? You know, if you walk into a dealership and you talk to a dealer and you say, I want to pay cash, they'll tell you, no, you got to charge it. Okay, so I want to start off, first off, tell you a little bit, sorry. I want to tell you a little bit about Blink, what we are as a company, what we offer, talk about our products and services, and then talk about our partnership with the Region 1 Planning Council. So, about Blink, Blink was founded in 2009, so we've been around a while. 2009 doesn't seem like too far back, but as far as EV charging companies, a lot of players have entered the market, and we've been established, we've got a track record. We are a publicly traded company, so we've got strict requirements as far as sorting access, being transparent and above the board. Recently, we acquired, actually last month, acquired a company called SemaConnect. SemaConnect was another large player in the EV industry. So we basically doubled our size in a run. So our advantages, number one, we've got distribution, both on the East Coast and West Coast. So we're able to get product out to customers sooner. You may have heard some lead times out there for charging equipment. Sometimes, depending on the units, it could be anywhere from 60 days on up to 6 months, 12 months, so forth. So it takes some time to get, especially some of these bigger units, but we're working to get that delivery time down. We've got currently over 48,000 chargers deployed in the U.S., so we've got a very good footprint charging networks, we're going to start to share the ability to accept payments from multiple networks. So Blink is right now finalizing a deal with ChargePoint, for example, to start, where if you have a ChargePoint app on your phone and an account, you'll be able to charge use a Blink charge with a ChargePoint account and vice versa. So some great things coming. We're going to do that with Tesla as well. So Blink has, again, a very strong footprint. We work with multiple well-known entities from parking services. And again, I come from a commercial parking background, so I worked with SP Plus for a number of years, and it's I've got some great experience working with municipality, public garages, and so forth. Different things you want to consider when looking at any public-facing parking versus a private workplace, healthcare agency, university. Each different type of property has different features that you want to look at and consider. I like to think that I can provide some input, some helpful input in all those areas. But again, some well-known brands, municipalities as well that we work directly with. One product overview. We have anywhere from our level 2 home chargers to the HQ line. That's a great event that will, our latest is the HQ200 that will operate at 12 kilowatts. The MQ200, this is an exceptional fleet product. So if we have fleet vehicles for police, for deliveries, for ambulatory, school buses, and so forth. We're working with Lion Electric Bus, it's one of our major customers for this MQ200. So we'll be able to charge at 12 kilowatts, which again is a great fit for a lot of these EV utility vehicles. And then our IQ200 line, that's our commercial line. So the one commercial line will be able to process payments by credit card through the Blink mobile app that I talked about, and we'll accept payments through Apple Pay, Google Pay, and so forth. So it's a great customer interface for a public user that's using it to charge their vehicles. Our design is very unique and very user available too. On DC fast, remember, you're plugging directly into the battery and charge at a higher rate. But we can scale back. We can connect it besides circuit from 10 amp breaker up to 100 amp. So we're flexible. I can keep it on the higher end so you can best match the users and owners of vehicles at your facility. Another advantage we have is local load management. So you think, boy, if I've got a dual unit, I got to run 2 circuits out just for that. If I want 8 units on site, it's a lot of circuits to run. May not have the panel capacity, may not have the power on site, as we're talking to friends at ComEd. But we have the ability for local load management for setting up level 2 chargers. What that means is basically you could share a circuit, install multiple units on a single circuit, save on cost of implementation of the infrastructure, and you also build in that ability to expand. What you want to think about is all the time future-proofing your charger deployment. So ability to expand down the road, being able to leverage a higher amount of power output. So when you use local load management, you have the ability to set that up. So that first vehicle that plugs in, let's say it's a Tesla 3 charges at 11 kilowatts. I could charge that first vehicle at 11 kilowatts, and we still have 8.2 kilowatts available to spread between the second, third, or fourth. And we can divide that equally among each, or we can have first in priority. This is our FQ200, again, our fleet unit. We use this for fleet and multi-family properties. Well, might sound like 2 different user groups. Well, for fleets, number one, our network has an exceptional, just introduced fleet software. Our fleet management software will integrate with existing fleet management softwares that you might have for maintenance, for example, and GPS. But we have the ability to basic functions where I can assign an RFID card, something similar that you might have for. Thank you. So similar that you might assign to a fleet vehicle now for fueling up, you assign an RFID card, and that the driver would tap on the charger and start a charging session that way. We could schedule charges. So if you plug in and want to schedule to take advantage of lower rates through ComEd and not get hit through demand fees, you can do that as well, so you're charging overnight. You also have the ability to add odometer readings. So anything that you do for fleet vehicles now, you'll be able to do with your electric fleet with this solution. Oh, let me turn back. I do want to talk about this for multifamily. What we're doing for multifamily is, number one, any user can go up to that if they have a link account, be able to start a charging session. But for multifamilies, what we're doing is properties are assigning RFID cards, so they're able to control who's using the units. So they just want their tenants to use it, they can do that. They can also make it available to the public, again, through a Blink mobile app, and charge maybe a different rate to a public user versus a resident. So they can set it up that way. And they also have the ability to maybe not charge anything up front. Use it as a rental incentive or a leasing incentive. And you can also charge back on a rent roll. So even multi-unit residences or workplaces as a great solution for those types of properties as well. DC fast chargers, again, we start at 30 kilowatts. Over on the right side, it's a wall-mounted unit. We have a pedestal cable management available for that as well. So it's very convenient. It can be deployed on, from a surface lot to any other area that you might want to loop that DC faster. And then the large cabinet unit. units will connect to the cloud. They have a SIM card in the unit, so that it's cellular connectivity. If you're in a garage, underground garage, where you don't have cellular, we connect to it over Wi-Fi, and the cloud database stores all the charging session information. It also enables us to process transactions for use of the charging station. So the Blink network is what we call our solution. There's advantages. Number one, for a driver, I can look up on my app or on a desktop. I can find any Blink charging station. I'll be able to see what the charging session fees are, whether the unit's even available or not. Somebody might be using it now. And then we'll also have the ability to reserve time on a unit if you're a host and want to make that available to the user. We also feed third-party software or apps such as PlugShare, feed Google Apps, Apple Maps, so you'll be able to find our chargers on any of your map applications. From the host perspective, you'll be able to download and download all sorts of data, get all types of reporting as far as usage. The units actually have their own meter built in, so you'll be able to know anytime how much power is being used for any single charging session. So you'll be able to go down that way. And then you also have the ability to manage your units through the dashboard. So I can go into any unit, I can group them together. If you have multiple properties, and you want to group all units at a single property together, you can do that. Manage those, set fees, be able to see the health of the unit and so forth. The other advantage you have is once a unit's connected to our network, we monitor the units 24/7. If there's a problem, if it's offline, we'll know it right away. We can troubleshoot remotely, either by restarting the unit, updating the firmware on the units, and so forth. 99% of the issues with charging stations, at least on the level 2 side, are correctable through our network. We have different business models. So if you're thinking about, and I just came back from my IPMI parking convention meeting, and there is an industry for parking, believe it or not. But the great question came out where somebody from New York said, well, we're being asked to put in all these charging stations. Who's going to pay for those? How do I get these funded and so forth? Well, there's a few ways. Number one, we offer several models. First is the host home, which is you purchase it, right? You purchase it, you install it. Maybe there's some rebates or incentives coming out that you can offset your costs. There very well could be some reasonable payback that make the investment feasible, and maybe over a 5-year term, you're pretty profitable over time. Not saying that it happens all the time. It all depends. We don't know what the usage is going to be, but typically, I like the model, payback models, assuming if I have, say, I have 2 Tesla 3s, just charging each week, okay? So 2 days I have a Tesla 3 on there, okay? The rest of the week it's dormant. I can pretty much pay for the units as well as the infrastructure. Blink as a service essentially is the lease and package of services. decisions on how you want to plan for your construction. Both my the other panel speakers here touched on NEVI's National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. So those will be released very soon. So they're coming up. If you're not familiar with those, they're targeting interstate corridors. So locations that are within 1 mile of an interstate exit, they qualify for NEVI funds. And again, will give you 4 plugs at 150 kilowatts each. So large power requirements. We working closely with ComEd and making sure that we can bring that power to a location and what the costs are, what your demand fees are, and understanding that program entirely. This program will fund a significant portion of the project. And then you would either pick up that difference or you can work with a company such as Blink to fund that difference and operate under one of the models that we discussed. So our partnership with the Regional Planning Council, basically we offer very significant discounts on level 2 chargers. So 30% on our chargers and 10% on accessories. Our fleet units, we offer 20% discounts. So very favorable terms for Region 1 planning council members. DC fast chargers will offer 7% discount, and residential chargers. So if you wanted to offer something for your residents, maybe residential chargers would work well. And again, significant discounts. We have pulls out pricing on the HQ 150. That's a 7.68 kilowatt charger. Might be sufficient for home use if a resident has a newer vehicle. The HQ 200 will charge it up to 12 kilowatts. So we offer different warranties. We cover full parts and labor for the first year on level 2 chargers, and then on DC fast chargers we cover the first 3 years, and have the ability to extend warranties. So it's essentially full maintenance over the term of the warranty. And then there are network fees. I talked about being able to push data to the cloud. So it's the cellular communications and use of our backend network, and it comes out to only $216 a year. Blink tries to be, as I said, very transparent in its costs. So the only fee that you're going to see is $216 a year for a single unit each year, and no other recurring fees, no commission fees, that sort of thing. So we try to be straightforward and upfront with the cost going forward. For Region 1 planning, we waive that first year Blink network fees. Early in the process, as far as getting involved in the EV market, we're a leader in EV charging, and up until recently, we were one of the few companies that offered 19.2 kilowatts. A lot of companies are being able to offer that now, and will offer that in the future. So we have to be better. We do that to number one, our network, our support that we provide. We've got 24/7 customer support. We have network technical support that's available 6 days a week. So we strive to be better. We think we are better than our competitors out there, and have better solutions for you. So with that, I look forward to any further discussion people have, and
So we are running a little long, so I won't be able to get through a number of questions, but I highly encourage you to, if you do have any questions, reach out to us and we will put you in contact with the appropriate person. So one of the questions is, how large of an entity would benefit from the new ComEd customer classes?
How large?
Yes.
And that's the many size.
There's definitely training that's needed to install these. Again, in the area we're using Rockers top electrical installers. These are companies that have already been around for many years, already invested in all the communities and facilities that we teamed up with to be able to provide a very seamless installation in your organization process.
I would like to own an EV but charge using solar panels. To get the incentive, I have to show previous usage. Can I go around this before I buy an EV?
Well, I'm not sure on what programs would be for solar panels, but it's interesting. You know, all right, I'll just speak up. Okay. I work primarily in the Midwest. I have projects across the country with different types of incentives in every state. And I'll just take this aspect. We always recommend charging by the kilowatt hour. And I don't know if it's called, it will have any but some states don't allow you to do that, or at least formally don't allow you to do that. Why the utility might be fine charging kilowatt. The traditional thought was that you charge by kilowatt hour, you're reselling electricity. Okay? The rub comes if in some states, if the power is not purchased from the utility. So, for example, in Wisconsin, they were looking at changing the law to formally allow you to charge by the kilowatt hour. Okay? That got pushed back because it was packaged not only with EV charging companies, but also with solar companies. So the concern was that if you're creating your own power, now the utility is not providing that power. So that got rejected, although I think it'll be back on the table in some other forms. So as far as incentives available for solar, again, that goes state by state. It goes area by area, I should say. I know ComEd has some things for solar, and let them speak to that. But you can always look at the EV portion and the solar portion. We work on some solar projects. We're doing a big project in the state of Florida. Typically, the solar panels required to charge one EV charging station might take 50 amps. So the requirement is fairly significant. So it's a good question, and we'll have to see what types of incentives are out there.
Yeah, so if the question was around past usage being used to determine the size of the solar installation that you have to have and the incentives that you earn, then that would be our problems that solar. CEJA actually changed those requirements. Previously, it was just based on your past usage. Now, you can size solar based on your past usage, plus account for the future adoption of 2 electric vehicles as well as mobile electric vehicles. So we don't have those incentives. You should be able to size your solar to account for future EV adoption and take advantage of that generation that you've got.
Time for one more question. How soon will ComEd's charging station incentives be available once the beneficial electrification program is approved?
Good question. So we would hope that we would get approval of the plan sometime in early 2023, and then we would go through a process of starting on those various programs. So I would expect that over the course of that next year, 2023, definitely by early 2024, we've got a lot of these programs up and running, but it depends on each of the individual programs and starts.
Thank you. So I would like to thank our panelists for providing very helpful information. I saw a lot of people taking notes as each of you were presenting. And I also want to thank once again our sponsors for Drive Electric Week. First, to our presenting sponsor, ComEd, as well as to Thayer Energy Solutions, blue back row, and blink charging. And please feel free to help yourself. We have plenty of donuts in the back. So thank you.